Greetings, book lovers, and get ready for a literary adventure that will ignite your imagination. Join me as we traverse the captivating landscapes of I Have Some Questions for You by Rebecca Makkai. Thank you for taking the time to listen. Also, thank you very much for your support. Part It. Body Payne watches footage from a 1995 musical put on by her alma mater, the Granby School. She focuses on Thalia Keith, who was murdered in the spring of their senior year. Thalia died sometime after the end of this production, while many of her friends were at a party. Body addresses her former musical director, Denny Block, and notes that it's been convenient for you that Thalia's death attracted excessive, often absurd media attention. Body hosts a successful podcast centering on the history of women film. She maintains a desperate, long-distance affair with a law professor named Yahav. Body and her husband, Jerome, are separated but remain cordial. They live in abutting duplexes in Los Angeles and raise their children together. In 2018, Body returns to New Hampshire to teach a 2-week course at Granby. She remembers her own relatively unhappy years at Granby, where she felt alienated from the largely wealthy student body. Body reunites with one of her best friends, Fran, who now teaches at Granby. She discusses Block with another faculty member. As an active stage crew member, Body was close with Block. During Body's first class, one of her students, Britt, decides to focus her podcast on Thalia's death. Body wanted this girl to look directly at Thalia's death in a way I myself couldn't. In Chapter 8, Body recalls the deaths of her father and brother. Her brother accidentally pushed their father off a porch and later committed suicide. Body's mother abandoned her and a Mormon family, the Robesons, cared for Body and paid for her tuition at Granby. She remembers Thalia's arrival at Granby, where she was central and beloved. During their junior year, Body and Thalia were roommates. Body thinks of her other best friends at Granby, Geoff and Carlotta. Fran and Body discuss Britt's podcast idea. Fran discourages the project. They remember Omar Evans, the young black athletic trainer who was arrested for Thalia's murder. Fran suggests that Block was a creeper towards Thalia. Body remembers that Block was close with many students. He encouraged Body to create a new vision of herself. Some students suspected that Block and Thalia were having an affair. Britt proposes that Omar is innocent and that he falsely confessed under extraordinary pressure. He was the victim of an inexperienced and racist small-town police force. Body considers the evidence against Omar. Thalia was found dead in the campus swimming pool with evidence that she had been beaten and strangled. Omar was in the athletic building at the likely time of her death. In addition, police allegedly found Omar's hair in Thalia's mouth, as well as his DNA in her swimsuit. Police suspected that Omar and Thalia were sleeping together, and that Omar was selling her drugs. Body watches an interview with Omar's mother and feels her heart cracking along familiar fault lines. In an aside, Body narrates Omar's hypothetical murder of Thalia. In this version, Omar, angry at Thalia's continuing relationship with her boyfriend, Robbie Serenho, kills Thalia in his office and leaves her in the pool. Body and her class discuss Thalia's death. Body describes the many students who attended a party in the woods on the night of the murder. She remembers the rumors after Thalia's death that she was having trouble with an older guy. Body suspects that this might not have been Omar, but instead Block. Body recalls a class trip to New York during which she saw Thalia and Blas sitting way too close, legs toward each other, touching at the ankle. She remembers being bullied by Beth Docherty, one of Thalia's close friends. One summer, Body made an abrupt transformation by adopting a grunge style. A new student, Carlotta, quickly became friends with Body and Fran. Britt interviews Body for her podcast. Body describes the evening of Thalia's death and notes the shoddiness of the subsequent police investigation. She recalls one afternoon when she saw Thalia looking through a dumpster as if she was on drugs. Body wonders if this anecdote, which she told the police, inadvertently led to the arrest of Omar, who grew marijuana. Britt tells Body that there was alcohol in Thalia's stomach that hadn't been absorbed into her bloodstream. Body remembers that students began drinking at the end of the musical, meaning that Thalia must have died almost immediately thereafter. In an aside, Body proposes that Thalia might have been drunk and accidentally fallen into the swimming pool. Body watches a video by Dane Rubra, a YouTuber obsessed with Thalia's death. He proposes that either Pooja Sharma, one of Thalia's friends, or Robbie Sorrento, Thalia's boyfriend, killed her. In the morning, Body calls her husband. Jerome, a successful artist, tells her that a young woman, Jasmine Wild, has accused him of grooming her. Jerome and Jasmine consensually dated, but Jasmine believes that Jerome abused the age and power differences between them. Body, acknowledging that Jerome can be thoughtless, finds that the accusations do not justify the outrage online. She notices that many people have already begun to demand a response from her. Later, one of Body's students tells her that their uncle is Mike Stiles, one of Robbie's close friends at Granby. Body examines a website devoted to Omar, looking through photographs from the party on the night of Thalia's death. One online thread proposes that a spatter of mud on Robbie's sweatshirt is really blood. Breaking the narrative, Body notes that Omar has been stabbed in prison. In an aside, Body lays out the case for Robbie's guilt, yet notes that it would have been impossible for him to have killed Thalia and arrived at the party on time. At dinner, Body and Fran discuss Block's potential role in the murder. Body remembers one afternoon when she saw Robbie and Thalia argue. That night, Bodhi drunkenly tweets that Jasmine's story does not constitute actual sexual assault. The next day, Body learns through Britt's podcast project that Robbie came from a relatively poor family. She remembers an interaction with Thalia where she referred to Robbie as a controlling little bit. Thalia worried about a potential pregnancy, and Body showed her a method of tracking her period using X's and dots in her planner at a party. A faculty member reminds Body that the Keith family would be devastated if the case were reopened. In an aside, Body ponders the possibility that Thalia's envious friend Pooja accidentally killed her. Body faces online backlash for her response to Jasmine, who accuses her of dismissing the very real experience of someone like me. Yaha visits Body at Granby. They visit the library, where Body notices a note to someone named Deeb on Thalia's yearbook page. She suspects that this refers to Denny Bloch. Yahav tells Body that he needs a fresh start in general and breaks up with her. Body's podcast co-host, Lance, reveals that Body accidentally liked a racist tweet posted in response to Jasmine. Body offers to quit the show. She feels the sudden atomization of Yahav and Jerome and Lance. She remembers one night at Granby when she drunkenly passed out in the woods. She finds some comfort in her anger at Bloch. That night, she hosts a seance with her podcasting class. Body says that she thinks the police missed important details in their investigation of Thalia's death. A student in her class accuses Britt of doing some white savior thing. Together, the class watches a Dateline episode about Thalia, which focuses on the fact that Omar had been in the athletic building at the likely time of her death. Omar had used the phone that night. Body reasons that if Thalia dies soon after the end of the musical, then Omar was likely on the phone at this time and was, therefore, innocent. In an aside, Body describes memories as false as dreams and wonders if she herself might have killed Thalia. In class, a black student named Alder offers to help Britt with her podcast. Britt tells Body that she recently contacted Thalia's sister, Vanessa. Fran tells Body that many online conspiracists have focused on a photo of the X's and dots in Thalia's planner. That evening, Body sends a message to Vanessa and receives a link in return. The link contains transcripts of the police interviews after Thalia's death, including Body's own. She realizes that she was the only one mentioning drugs, a comment that became a central part of the state's case against Omar. Body reaches out to Yahav for his opinion on the legality of Omar's conviction. Britt and Alder find an interview with Omar's ex-wife, who notes that his temper scared me. Mike Stiles, whom Britt and Alder hope to interview for the podcast, calls Body, and they discuss the relative weakness of the case against Omar. During class, Body calls Yahav, who argues that the evidence against Omar is horseshit. He raises the possibility that police forced confession from Omar and might have even planted his DNA. Vanessa emails Body and tells her that she still has Thalia's planner. Body meets with her. In the planner, Body sees that Thalia wrote X's, likely denoting sexual encounters, per Bodhi's own advice, in two different colors. She suspects that the blue is Robbie. The purple is someone else. They discuss the possibility that the purple X's signify Denny Block. In an aside, Body walks through the potential details of Block's involvement in Thalia's death. She imagines that he accidentally killed her after attempting to break off their relationship. Later, Body remembers a moment at Granby when a student aggressively grabbed both her and Carlotta's breasts. With Body's 2 weeks at Granby complete, Fran's wife, Anne, drives Body to the airport. Body contemplates the many secret places on campus. She resolves to continue helping Britt and Alder with their podcast. She offhandedly texts Alder and encourages him to look in one of the hidden places at Granby, the athletic shed beside the gym. In March 2022, Body returns to New Hampshire to serve as a potential witness in a motion for retrial in Omar's case. She notes that all of our names had become well known after the success of her, Britt, and Alder's podcast. Per Body's suggestion, Britt and Alder found samples of Thalia's blood on the inside of the equipment shed door. The evidence scrambled the case and suggested that Omar's original defense team had not done their own proper investigation. In the intervening years, Body and Jerome had officially divorced. Just prior to the onset of the coronavirus pandemic, the state granted Omar a post-conviction relief hearing. Body recalls the interview that Britt and Alder conducted with Omar for the podcast. He asserted his innocence and suggested that the police gave themselves a little help by planting his debt. At a restaurant in Kern, near Granby, Body runs into Sakina John, a former classmate at Granby. Although Body is in sequestration and cannot legally speak with other potential witnesses, she and Sakina discuss the ongoing hearing. Sakina confirms that the defense is attempting to prove that Thalia drank from Beth Docherty's flask at the end of the musical, thereby changing the timeline of her death. Mike Stiles arrives and notes that Robbie Serenaha will soon arrive in town for the hearing. In an aside, Body notes that Carlotta has been diagnosed with breast cancer. Body meets with members of the defense team to practice her testimony. Body plans on stating that she has strong reason to believe that Thalia was romantically involved with the school's music director, Dennis Block. The defense warns her that the prosecution plans to paint Body as a nosy person, over-involved. At the hotel pool, Body and Fran see Robbie. Alder texts Body from the courtroom and confirms that the prosecution is attempting to discredit her. The lead defense attorney tells Body that she is reconsidering calling her as a witness. Body worries that she won't have a chance to name Denny Bloch. That evening, Body reunites with her friend Juff. Soon after, she encounters Dane Rubra. She reveals her suspicions about Bloch to Dane, hoping that he will discuss Bloch on his YouTube channel. At breakfast, Beth, another witness, angrily approaches Body and chastises her for reopening the case. In an aside, Body notes that the state has forced Omar, during the hearing, to subsist on one meal a day. In a store in Kern, Body runs into Robbie's wife, Jen. She tells Body that Robbie is under a great deal of stress, but that, by testifying, he can clear it up. Body later watches Dane's newest video. He warns his followers that Bloch, who continued teaching after his time at Granby, might be having relationships with young girls. Fran, Jeef, and Body attend a faculty party at Granby. Many of the faculty members treat Body in an icy manner. Body slips out and walks with Mike, who tells her about secret fraternal societies at Grambot. He notes that the members had sworn an oath to protect each other. Mike admits that he believes Omar had nothing to do with Agathalia's murder. Despite Body's sequestration, Alder visits her and shows her a video from the hearing in which the defense grills a police investigator about his shoddy investigation. The investigator admits that the head of school pushed the police to look at community members, not students, not faculty. Alder also shows her a Facebook page dedicated to gathering information about Bloch. In the hotel gym, Body again encounters Beth. Although Beth remains angry at Body, she tells her that Bloch often behaved in inappropriate ways with his female students. She confirms that Thalia and Bloch were sleeping together. She once helped Thalia shop for sexy underwear. In turn, she tells Body that Dorian Culler assaulted her. Body feels a newfound empathy for Beth. Dane's followers learn that Bloch is now teaching in Maryland. That evening, Body, Geoff, and Alder examine the photos from the night of Thalia's death. Alder suddenly notes that the marks on Robbie's sweatshirt are from riding a bike through the mud. They realize that if Robbie biked to the party, then he could have murdered Thalia after the musical and still arrived in time for the first photographs from the party. Bodies realizes that she had wrongly focused all her thoughts on Bloch. Body suspects that Robbie likely killed Thalia due to her relationship with Bloch. Body invites Mike to her room and flirtatiously asks him about Robbie. Mike is unsure whether Robbie arrived at the party with everyone else. He says that, in the wake of Thalia's death, Robbie gathered a bunch of his friends to confirm that their memories of the party aligned. Robbie also pushed for the release of the photos, thus providing himself with an alibi. Mike finally admits that Robbie and Thalia were planning to meet at the athletic shed on the night of her murder. No one ever revealed this information to the police. Mike claims that he does not value Robbie's freedom over Omar's, but that he simply wanted to protect his friend from undue police attention. In an aside, Body argues that Bloch is still complicit in Thalia's murder, as he did not tell the police about their relationship in the wake of her death. Body asks Beth about her memories of Robbie. Beth tells her that Robbie popped out at the party, thus suggesting that he arrived separately from everyone else. She says that Robbie was a controlling and potentially even violent boyfriend. He once threw out one of Thalia's collages. This likely explains Body's memory of Thalia searching through a dumpster. Later that night, Beth calls Body and agrees to testify about Robbie and Thalia. After Beth's testimony, Dane posts a video in which he states that Robbie Serenho did this thing. Dennis Bloch was the motivation. Body begins a romantic relationship with Geoff. Yahav, still providing legal advice to Badi, posits that, despite the new evidence, no charges will be brought against Robbie. In the weeks that follow, several women reach out to Badi with stories of abuse at the hands of Blah. A month later, as she waits for the judge's decision in Omar's hearing, Badi returns to Granby to visit Fran. She soon learns that the judge has denied the motion for retrial. The defense attorney promises to continue to fight for Yoner's freedom. Badi walks around the campus and reveals that Carlotta recently died. She thinks of Omar and notes that next to him, I knew nothing about hope. She looks at the woods and admires that their leaves made sugar out of nothing but light.